Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack. Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your NASCAR betting and DFS home. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We are back after Atlanta. We'll get into Atlanta. We'll get into some thoughts. We'll apparently going to need to get a weather forecaster on the show each time to figure out what the hell's going on, because NASCAR and the weather has been a epic battle all season long. We'll talk about our DraftKings. We'll talk about our bets. We'll also get set for New Hampshire, where the betting board is just an absolute travesty this week. We'll get into some thoughts there, see if we can't find some value and all that good stuff. But while I pull up our DraftKings and whatnot, how is it going, Brian Twining?
Oh, it's going great, except for the fact that, I wanted to see the entire Atlanta race, Quaker State 400. Like, that race was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Just how frisky those guys were getting on track was absolutely insane. It maybe the second or third best race of the season that I've watched, even though it didn't go the entire distance.
Yeah. I mean, between last week and this week, I know we didn't get full races at either, but those have been two of the most entertaining from a viewer perspective
exactly
all season long.
And I think too, I think it's really important to note, like, as much as it sucks to see it end short, from a pure fan perspective, or from maybe somebody who was tuning in for the first time this last weekend at Atlanta, like, you couldn't have asked for anything better. Just to see how aggressive drivers were being. It wasn't just a follow the leader type of thing, So I think it's really good for the sport with how they've looked.
I kind of like, obviously you want to see it go all three stages because it was really fun. It's always really funny too, because like even last week when it's Chicago, like, there, you can tell when people are on different bets or on different things and they need stuff to happen, and whether they want the race to stop or start or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I won't say that doesn't have anything in play, but it is interesting. Like it definitely felt like, okay, we're going to call the race early. Everybody knows, they know the weather's coming. There's a plan in place. You can decide to stay out and risk it. You can get caught out. Maybe you're Michael McDowell, and if that race goes another 2 or 3 laps, he's parked on the side of the road, or he has to come in, and all of a sudden he's in the back of the pack. Whereas in Chicago, people made some decisions, and the NASCAR's arbitrarily like, 25 laps, just lop them off.
Exactly.
And that was, I think at least it felt a little bit better from a viewer standpoint. Fun race. The Fords dominated. Obviously they were the ones that didn't end up really staying out. Obviously McDowell and some other guys, but it really felt like Ryan Blaney was going to win that race, or Logano. I felt pretty good, but let's review our stuff and give the people some thoughts as we go through it. So had one decent lineup and one not so decent lineup. Chris Buescher at one point was in the lead, at one point was running near the back, and ended up finishing right where he started at 15th. Christopher Bell moved up. He was one of the best cars.
He was
for the majority of stage 1 and stage 2, and obviously when the whole shenanigans happened, that's kind of ruined his day. But he was like, he was flirting for the lead. He was a good live betting opportunity, all that good stuff.
Reddick was good, like pretty much the entire race until he got caught up by, I believe it was the Corey LaJoie incident that ran him up into the wall, or maybe Ricky Spinhouse. I can't recall. It was
I don't remember. I know he was running pretty well too, and then had an issue,
and he was part of collateral damage, of course.
Yeah, so obviously it's been a rough go for him, man. That guy is just every week having issues. And then this is the other one. The best call was your dinger call. That dude getting all the way up into top 3. I wish we had some top 3, top 5 on him.
That's fantastic, except for the fact that it's not on the betting card, so I'll talk about that now. I texted Kyle, I was sweating a Dinger top Chevy at 20-1 number before, of course, we get this like, oh, we're going to shorten. It's probably going to get rained out, and William Byron and Daniel Suarez are in front of him.
Yeah, speaking of things that didn't make the betting card, I had a William Byron top Chevy, and that was a nice play. So it really is interesting how when the race ends, it really throws everything into a thing. But Ross Chastain was really frustrating. I don't know. I know he had his incident, but I never felt like he was even really, in the conversation. But we had Dinger get third and McDowell get fourth. Obviously, if that race goes longer, maybe weirder stuff happens. McDowell's out of the paint. Dinger has to pit. Maybe he's more of a mid-pack driver at that point. Eric Jones almost secured the top 10, so it was a pretty good day for him. And then obviously Blaney and Logano dominating that race at points, leading a bunch of laps. Maybe that race, maybe some of the points get shifted around, but I still think in the grand scheme, it ended up working out. So we did okay. The bet tracker, on the other hand, was not as pretty. McDowell top 10 was really nice. And then I had Byron over Keselowski only because of the way that ended. Like, where were you at with Kez in terms of that race? Because I know he's a really popular bet. People wanted to see that race continue to see if he could win the race.
I think he was good.
He was good, but I don't know that he was. I mean, I guess there was points where he was flirting with the front row. So it was interesting.
I feel like it just like what happened to Ryan Blaney. Like Keselowski just got caught up in the strategy of when they were pitting and all that garbage as to like when the rain was coming and all that stuff. So
and then Bowman was having a nice day until he got spun out, and then his front fender got ripped off. Like Kyle Larson had an issue, Bowman had an issue. Was Chase involved, or was?
I don't think Elliott was involved. I think it was because of
whatever.
Denny. Like that's what they were saying is like Denny got Bowman, and then let me just say, looking at your betting card, I went through and graded this as soon as the race ended, and when I was looking at the Chastain over Larson wager, how lucky can you be that both of them wreck out, but Chastain lasts just a little bit longer than Kyle Larson?
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I tell you what. But I don't know. Like it was certainly a day. I feel like that race, maybe if it continues and doesn't end the way it did, my card gets flipped on its head a little bit, and I get a few more luck breaks, and maybe I don't win, some other stuff. But it wasn't fun, but ended up getting there, and then obviously. Similar results for you. We were on a lot of the same guys: Blaney, Reddick, Bubba. You had Bubba and Busher. The Dinger top 10 was nice. Reddick top Toyota.
It looked good for a while. Like honestly, I felt like it was Reddick and Bell in regards to like who were the two strongest Toyotas overall throughout. The race.
I thought if anyone ruined that bet, it was going to be Seabell, and I bet Seabell live because. He made sense, and So overall, not a great week. You're still in the green, so nice work there. I got to get back in the green for our recent results. And then obviously it hasn't been. It's pretty, but the cool thing about NASCAR betting is you hit an outright or two, and all of a sudden everything's the other way. So let's figure out where the value and odds are. I guess, Brian, as we start to look at this. How are you viewing this week? Because obviously there's a lot of recent results at shorter, flatter tracks that may give some different information than historical runs at New Hampshire. Some guy like, for example, we'll get to William Byron, who has been the king of short flat all season long. He's been dominant. But him and New Hampshire have been this head-to-head battle that like he hasn't even got a top 10 at this track. So I'm trying to figure out how to frame that this week. I'm going to be on some guys that I never bet on. They're old. They're gross. They not really exciting. But the way the board's set up and the way the history is set up and the way that everything is, I'm going to be on it. But I guess, how are you viewing it? And what's your kind of general thought as we're going into this week?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about. I mean, obviously, we caught the beginning of the NASCAR betting preview show. Had to jump on here a little bit early,
Yeah.
but I think for me, I'm definitely taking more weight from what we've seen this year in 2023 at shorter flat tracks, and then for a close second, I'm going to look at last season at New Hampshire. But again, because this is brand new car and all that stuff, previous to last year, I think a lot of that stuff loses its relevance when trying to handicap this week because guys may have been good at this track, but with the new downforce package, the new short track package in particular, like just the way that they're running this type of stuff, I don't think you can, exactly. It's not apples to apples comparisons when looking at prior to next gen car to, next gen car second season at a track like this. So I'm definitely looking at who's been strong on the shorter flats this year. I mean, William Byron comes to mind. I'm kind of surprised he's not at the top of the odds board, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And, when you look at Bell, he's opens as the favorite, but what has he done in 2023 to warrant him opening as a favorite at any track, regardless of past history?
All right, so I am showing this to kind of go through it a little bit. So, iFantasy Race, our guy, he joined us. We got to get him back on soon. He's a fun chat, but he's got some good stuff on his Twitter. We've been trying to share it as much as possible. But if you're not following iFantasy Race and you're involved in NASCAR betting or DFS every week, you're missing out. So he's got some stuff for Phoenix, Richmond, and Gateway, which are the shorter, flatter tracks for the for this season with speed rankings. As you can see, William Byron, number 1 at Phoenix, number 1 at Richmond, 4 Gateways, number 1 by a good margin. Then we have Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chris Bell at 5, who was good at Phoenix, who's good at Richmond, obviously not at mid-pack at Gateway, and then obviously it goes down, and then some other good stuff. So I did want to show that off. If you want some more good charts like that, I would highly recommend going and check that out. But yeah, I'm using, like you, I'm using a lot more of what we've seen this year, but I'm also like, if I'm like between a couple guys, I'm breaking ties, I'm thinking about guys that I think can also work this track really well, at least have experience, maybe even if they haven't been the best at it. I think it's interesting. So I looked at Christopher Bell, and I want to go back and rewatch the race in 2022 because he was like top 10 guy, like majority of the day, but got really fast in stage 3, made some really good adjustments. And obviously that was a big part of his win. I don't know if that's something that's sustainable and that's something we can predict. Cause like, at 5 to 1, at 6 to 1, there's no way in hell I'm betting this. I need, at least before practice and qualifying. If we get practice and qualifying, which, NASCAR and the weather, the ever epic battles, until I see something that like is just mind boggling, there's no way I'm betting him even at 6 to 1.
Yeah. It's very similar to the rhetoric we were talking about with Ross Chastain a couple of weeks ago. Like regardless of how good he looked in practice and qualifying, and that was post practice and qualifying, you just couldn't bet the number because he hasn't shown it on a Sunday. Whereas, we're coming into a week with a guy at 5 to 1 who hasn't gone off at anything maybe shorter than 12 to 1 over the last 2 months at any other track. So, I mean, the odds make zero sense to bet him right now, especially too. What if he goes and he, blows a tire or has an issue during qualifying, spins out, and then he's starting at the back of the field? This number is getting longer. And even if he goes out and puts it on pole, what's it going to go to? 4.5 to 1, 4 to 1? Like,
yeah, unless they're getting massive bets from the Wormies of the world, I don't think that's happening. Yeah, is there anyone inside 10 to 1 that you're even considering?
I mean, I almost want to say like a Kyle Larson, but he hasn't really put it on. He really hasn't put it together either on Sundays the last few weeks. So,
yeah, Truex is the name for me. I want to see him qualify. I'm actually kind of hoping he is just fine in qualifying in practice, and we can get it to float a little closer to maybe 8 or 9 to 1.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a pipe dream at this point. But if he looks incredible and performs well, maybe I'll be in at that point. Let's keep scrolling through these prices. I told you I'm going to be on people that I never typically be on. I'm a big fan. I tweeted it out. I'm a big fan of the olds this week, and I'm a big fan of the really gross drivers that nobody likes. So, Kevin Harvick, 10-1. Welcome to the betting card. This guy in 2022 was fast. He was running near the front. Obviously, only finished fifth. So that's not, obviously not a win, but a strong performance. Obviously looked good. He was second at Phoenix this year. He was sixth at Richmond. He was seventh at Gateway in terms of total speed rankings, which is good for second behind William Byron. He's been impressive. I think this is a good spot for him to get his win. As we I think there's a few guys in this range that could make some sense, but Kevin Harvick, 10-1 on the betting card. I am in.
I definitely see why people want to bet Harvick, but again, like in terms of winning potential, how many races this year have we seen Harv up front competing for the win? Honestly, this is to me, this is reminiscent to how we came into the week at Sonoma with Martin Truex Jr. Had Martin Truex Jr. opened that week at 10-1, we wouldn't have bet him. But because he was 33-1, 35-1, you're going to hammer that, hopefully expecting him to look good in practice and qualifying, which he did. And he still went off at, what was it, 8, maybe 7.5? I think Harvick, honestly, with what we've seen on track, should have probably opened lower than, for gosh sakes, William Byron 12-1. Like, if you're gonna ask me who I'd rather bet right now, give me the 24 car.
Yeah, no, it's completely fair. I trust Harvick this week. I think he's going to be really good at this track. I think he's got a lot of experience, and I think having that experience combined with the new car and the recent results makes him someone who's really, really compelling to me. So like I said, I like the old guys this week, and that's not something I'm ever usually really saying. So Kyle Busch also 10-1. Chase Elliott is going to be really interesting. Obviously, been trash this year, but has a lot of good history here. This could be a spot for a guy that needs a win to grab one, but is he somebody at 12-1 that you're like, are you interested in him, or is it just nope, go to William Byron, call it a day?
Yeah, I don't see why William Byron shouldn't be the first automatic ad amongst that group if you had to choose between all those guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But
especially too, like, I'm really excited. Because we've seen it before. Our buddies over at Circa, they hang some interesting lines, and because I'm going to be there this weekend for the Scott Fishbowl draft, I will definitely have some cheddar on some of these numbers that we're going to be getting some decent.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested. I'm going to be keeping an eye. I will say Harvick's inside 10-1 over at Circa, so that made me feel a little bit better about where my head was going this week.
Yeah,
maybe they'll give us like a 15 on Byron, and then we can just hammer that shit.
That's what I mean. Exactly. Like, we've seen it before. So
yep. Your boy Logano and Blaney in the 15-1 range. Tyler Reddick is 18 at DK and Rivers, but he's moving it at Caesars. Talk to me about Reddick, because I know he's somebody you're very interested in this week.
I'm going to do it again. Like, I feel like he's turned into my new Ryan Blaney, obviously a much shorter sample size, but each week he's coming to the track with a car capable of running up front. It's just a matter of whether or not he can stay out of trouble. I mean, last week Atlanta, shit happens at those types of races. So obviously that was bound to happen. But like, I think for me, I'm looking at this more of, he had a great run in Phoenix. He's shown plenty of speed at pretty much every single track we've come to over the last month plus. And you're looking at a car which Kurt Busch drove last year to a top 3 finish. And we've already seen
you about that, because last year he was third in total speed. He was second in green flag speed. He was second in late run speed. He obviously only got a top 10, so that's not ideal, but that car is under Tyler Reddick now. You're factoring? I assume you're factoring that into to your kind of excitement for him.
Yeah, like I mean, I think it's fair to say we've seen the tracks that 2311 really excels at, and we've seen the speed they've brought to those tracks this year already. And I think the same is going to happen this weekend. So hopefully we get practice and qualifying and this number, sinks again. I mean, obviously I'm banging my head against a concrete wall here betting Tyler Reddick, but if they're going to keep giving me these numbers ahead of P and Q when Reddick has been a qualifying machine this year, I'm going to continue to bet him.
Okay, so this is going to get really gross, Brian, but I'm betting Brad Keselowski this week.
I can't hate on that.
Our friends over at Barstool had a 23-1 on him. You can still get, I think, 20. Let's see what Barstool still is hanging at. 23 over at Barstool. So you can still get that if you have access. He's 20-1 pretty much everywhere else. I think it's a really interesting spot for him. We've talked about RFK's progression this season. He's somebody that from a veteran ability to perform, from all of his experience, he knows this track, and now he has a good ride under him that has clearly been interesting. They've been in the front of a lot of races. They've had opportunities, both him and Buescher. And I was frankly surprised. I thought he would be more in that like 14-ish, 15, 16 maybe. To see him north of 20 was pretty surprising, and somebody that I'm very, very optimistic on this week.
Yeah, I like the Brad K number. I think he's probably priced about right. Like, I mean, unless he, puts it in the first couple of rows, I don't really see this number going too far shorter. I mean, probably maybe 14, 15-1, but it's not going to get much longer, I don't think, unless of course he screws the pooch during qualifying.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. The rest of the like the 20 to 30-1 range, Eric Almirola. There was some booty chatter about him on the NASCAR betting preview. There's a lot of people fading Bubba Wallace. I'm not sure if I want to do that. I know this is not really his style of track. I don't know. Where are you at with him this week? You're usually a good litmus test.
I'm not betting him to outright. The numbers got to be right and the situation has to be right. I do like him maybe in some placements, like you said, people were downplaying his run here last year, but again, 2311, we've seen it so many times. Tracks that they run well at in the past, of the past couple of years with Bubba under behind the wheel there, they come prepared for them so far this season in 2023. So I think you're going to get some good value pre-flop here on Bubba Wallace. I think there's some decent value on some matchups if you can get him at plus money. It's just, again, with Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, I guess you could say that 2311 is going through that like second year, that sophomore middle season slump where their pit crews are messing up, the drivers are making mistakes. It's just once they clean that up, like I think you're looking at weekly top 10 contenders out of both of these guys with the potential to win races.
Yeah, and I think Trackhouse was going through that, and then they obviously got some stuff figured out. Ross got the win, SVG got the win. They're just been more compelling. Is there any longer shots that are compelling to you? I think there's a few interesting names as we kind of trickle down the board, but obviously, we talk about it every week. It's really hard to bet anyone at this long of a number to outright win the race. But I was just curious if anybody is jumping out to you.
I hate saying it, but we've seen him run better the last couple of weeks. Like if Chase Briscoe, 80-1, like
he is absolutely the name. He is so gross. And I don't know that I'm willing to put the 80-1.
I can't do it, but it's not a bad number if you wanted to put something on it.
Talk about his like top 10, top 5 odds, and the number, like the like he is priced to win the race with names, but he's not priced in that same range to top 5, top 10, which I think is very interesting. But I love Chase Briscoe this week, and that's not something I thought I would say. Even at his worst, even at his stinkiest stinky, he's been good here. He was good at Martinsville. He was good at any like the shorter, flatter tracks. He was
Good at Phoenix.
Top 10 at Phoenix. He was solid at Vegas until something happened. I think I was looking at it earlier. Like he's had a good run of stuff. And for a guy that's priced where he's priced, he jumped out to me. I said, I'm not going to put the 80 but I think the fact that he's 65 some places now tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note too, like sometimes I fall into this trap where I look too much into, say, finishing results at a race, and for a lot of people who don't exactly sit there on Sundays and spend 3-4 hours just watching the race, it's hard to tell who actually ran good and all that type of stuff. But for what it's worth, Briscoe has looked a lot better the last couple of weeks than he did over the 2-month span where him and SHR, I guess you could say, were absolute garbage. So
yeah,
finding something, I think this is probably around the same time last year where he really started to pick it up. So I think maybe they're turning it around, or at least going to get out of racing with Rick Ware cars at the back of the pack. So yeah, I hope so. Just for our freaking season long outright futures, but
yeah, if people are interested in Almirola, there's another SHR car. Maybe this is just a good spot for them. I know Almirola was talking about, I think on Twitter, maybe his crew chief. I was talking about they've been looking forward to this track and excited about this track. So hopefully SHR can figure some stuff out, because I think there is some good opportunities here. So let's go over and look at that top 10 market. Barstool has changed the way their website looks, which I think for us is actually okay. It looks it's going to be easier to look at, but it is kind of weird that they adjusted things. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously we don't get the fun numbers like we had at Atlanta with a lot more predictability. They're going to really make us priced conscious. So like the top, I don't know, 6 guys or whatever are probably pretty hard to get to. Byron at -150, Logano, Blaney, Reddick at -120. Like, are any of these interesting to you? Or do you need to see that plus money before you even consider it?
No, I think because this isn't like an Atlanta, I think there's a lot easier way to like cherry pick these numbers. I mean, I gotta admit, I don't hate the Ryan Blaney -120. I mean, that car has been absolutely incredible this year. Again, Bubba Wallace +160. I don't know if I could get there. I think I'd probably rather see him around that 2-1 just because of the vast, cavernous differences in running that he can do. But like, Chase Briscoe 2-1. I don't hate that. And then
Briscoe I have on the card. Bet Rivers has +225, so that made it. I think Bowman is sort of interesting. You really want to bank on guys that you think could qualify well enough to make these numbers move. So yeah, Almirola is probably priced pretty fairly, and like even if he puts it in the top 10, is that number really going to? I mean, I guess it could go up where like
what's he going to go to -110, -120?
Yeah, I think -120 to 140. Like if he performs really, really well. So if you want to get a little ahead of it, that's fine. But I don't love too much of this. I do wonder if Ty Gibbs is interesting. I actually want to look at what his run.
The thing though is he hasn't been able to really put together full races.
Yeah, he was doing so well. Kind of that first third of the NASCAR season, and then since then has not really been as solid as he was. I'm trying to find. All right, I don't know. Let's see. This is bad radio, so I'll figure that out. I'm gonna look at some Ty Gibbs stuff with his run of the Xfinity to see if he was ever really decent here, but it just seems like a number that's out of place. Like Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, like these guys, I have no interest in. Ricky Stenhouse. McDowell at 9-1 was interesting to me, especially because Ryan Newman is 10-1. And I know McDowell hasn't been like good here, but it seems like a long number for a guy who's been significantly better just kind of on the whole.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, this is going to sound gross too because I hated on him a lot early on this season, but the Cindric top 10 number plus 550.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, the last like shorter flat track we ran that people are most comparing to this Gateway, Blaney started on the front row in second, and Austin Cindric grabbed a top 10 starting position and finished just outside the top 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if this runs anywhere similar to that, and we've seen Cindric too, you know, maybe he's got his confidence back after running well in Atlanta. Plus 550, that's a ridiculous number.
Yeah, I think like if you want to do some lottery ticket stuff, I think Cindric is fine. I will say, based on Ryan's numbers, Ty Gibbs was 11th at Richmond and 18th at Gateway, so I don't necessarily love him to like even compete for the win, but a top 10 at a number that is pretty aggressive seems fine. Obviously, we're getting really shafted on like a potential results here, but Bubba was actually 16, 13, and 13 in terms of total speed rankings at Phoenix, Richmond, and Gateway, so that's interesting. Logano is somebody that I feel like usually does well at Phoenix and Vegas. He had a bad run this year in Phoenix, but kind of interesting. I don't know. It's just like the numbers are so out of it. It's hard to see. It's hard to go from like a race like Atlanta where there's so much potential and the numbers are so nice.
Yeah.
And then the next week, it would be like 1 week the Chiefs are playing Denver and they're minus 200 favorites on the money line. And then they play them like 2 weeks later and they're minus like 6,000 favorites on the money line. It's like, I mean, I understand they're running different tracks and there's some are much more predictable, but it really does break your brain to kind of try and figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah, and I do think that because of the threat of rain yet again, I think you can get a little more liberal with the potential like dart throws, but at the same time be safer with the amount of money you're betting on those liberal bets.
Yeah, and I honestly like if you think like one of these longer shots has a real chance, maybe you put a little bit on it, and then when it gets closer, if they because like there is a risk that if they qualify really well, that at least gets the number cut. But like a Chase Briscoe, like 6-1 to top 5 is really interesting.
Yeah, but do you want to take on the added risk of those 5 extra spots, or just take the 2-1 top 10 and run for the hills? And oh my gosh,
what I want to do and what I should do and what I am doing are all different things. But that number at 6-1 is compelling. Cindric at 16-1, McDowell at 30-1. I don't know. They're probably all dumb losing bets, but they are fun to think about. Brad K at 325. Like
at least you can tell yourself that.
Brad K at plus 325 feels like such a better bet than plus 105 to top 10.
Yeah.
There's just the math isn't mathing on some of these numbers. And then Truex is minus 115, Chris Bell's even. Like I don't know.
Oh, and one thing too, they jokingly tweeted this today. The RFK racing team, Brad Keselowski's paint scheme this week is about the submarine company.
Oh, really?
And it's going to be raining, so I mean, his car is literally built to be in water.
Yeah, it's literally built to be destroyed by water, and it's ran by a freaking GameCube controller. Let's head over to Caesars and look at some head-to-heads. So Alex Bowman versus Ty Gibbs minus 120, Chris Buescher versus Ryan Preece. Obviously, Buescher's getting hammered early. Brad K versus Almirola. I like Brad K. The number, like a lot of these are interesting. There was a lot of folks that were on the Kyle Busch side of Kyle Busch, William Byron. I don't know. You really, if you're going like track history versus current form, I get it. But like if it's somewhat close, I don't know. It's hard to think.
Okay. First matchup I'm going to add to the card here, just based on value. Martin Truex Jr. plus 105 over Christopher Bell. Like,
yeah,
Truex is has the second shortest odds to win this race, folks. He's put this thing on pole last year here, and he's been absolutely effing incredible in 2023. The fact that he is plus money in a matchup against the guy who hasn't been as good as him in 2023, but maybe won the race by only 3 spots, mind you, in 2022 is ridiculous.
I am also adding that. That is a good bet. I don't understand. Like, that should be close to even at the most.
Yeah.
So I will gladly take
that should be one of those stupid minus 115 matchups.
I know it's your guy, but Reddick at plus money over Ryan Blaney, that's also really interesting.
I'm definitely not betting that because they're but yeah, no, again, plus money on a matchup that's probably pretty close to even. The one thing I will say is Blaney has qualified much better than Reddick historically at New Hampshire and the shorter flat tracks.
Do you think there's a possibility that number moves?
Yeah, that or stays the same post practice and qualifying.
Okay, I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna see if I can get extra value on that because I do like Reddick, like you. Let's see. I think future bets, and then we'll go look at some manufacturers. Top Chevy. It's always interesting when the top 5s and the top Chevys and like the matchups don't always reflect the same numbers.
Yeah.
So Kyle Busch, Byron, Chastain, Bowman. Anybody, man, you can get some numbers this week. I don't know if you actually want to bet any of them, but yeah, I don't know. That's pretty gross. Anybody jumping out to you from the Chevy market?
I mean, the first guy that I would want to bet would be William Byron, but not at plus 380. I'd rather just hit him on like placements.
Yep. Truex being the same as Hamlin is kind of interesting. Reddick being plus 650. Ty Gibbs being 18-1. I don't know why I'm in on Ty Gibbs, but here we are. Chase Briscoe, top Ford, 18-1. Let's effing go.
God, you're crazy. Kyle's off his rocker, folks.
That would imply that I was on my rocker at any point. All right, Briscoe. It's a number play. 18-1. Yeah. I'm not putting $1 million on it, and I'm putting like a quarter of a unit. But like, I'd much rather bet that. Like he's plus 225 to top 10. He's like, 60-1 to win the race. Like I'd much rather bet him to top Ford at a place where like Harvick I think will be fine. But like and Keselowski, I like both those guys. But like I don't feel like anyone's that dominant factor like that I'm so scared of at like if he was 6-1 or 8-1, I would have no interest. But 18, let's throw a little candy on it and see what happens.
True.
Cindric is 45.
Yeah, I don't know. Pricey. There's just so many guys with better pedigrees here in that camp.
Anyone from a qualifying perspective that you're interested in?
Hell no. Talking about shitty numbers. Look at those. Plus 325 to be the fastest qualifier for Kyle Larson. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, if you think he's going to be like that dominant, just bet him to win the race.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Almirola at 8-1, I don't hate.
There's no value in these other than maybe beginning with
Chase
William
Briscoe,
Byron.
35-1.
William Byron 12-1 is like the first guy I would even consider for a qualifying bet this week.
Yeah, I'm not betting any of these.
Yeah, the numbers
really
are crap.
gross. Really gross.
There was a matchup that
Barstool doesn't seem to have matchups, or maybe I'm just missing them.
no, I don't think they have any posted.
Which is weird. Very un-Barstool of them. We're recording on the same day as we always do.
Yeah, no, there is a matchup I want to hit.
Let's go back here. Let's go up to matchups. Let's see what we can find.
Gotta look at DK real quick to see.
Brad versus Bubba going on the card. I know it's their -115 nonsense, but I like Brad a lot this week, and that makes me feel really gross to say, but I'm going to take advantage of it.
Down Periscope.
Yep. Call me Kelsey Grammer, baby.
Oh, let's go. Yes, we are old. All right, yeah. So I don't see it better or really posted anywhere else, but over at FanDuel matchup, Chase Elliott versus William Byron. I'm smashing Byron -112 here. I don't really care pre, post, qualifying, whatever. Elliott could qualify on pole. Byron could start last. I'd still be betting that.
I love it. Average ass Chase Elliott. What about William Byron +100 versus Kyle Busch?
What?
William Byron +100 versus Kyle Busch.
Oh, I might have to jump on that too.
I think that's interesting. Almirola versus Suarez, if you're on the Almirola train. We got Truex, okay, at +105. That's good. I think that's everything.
That's wild.
Does FanDuel have some numbers up, actually?
Yeah, they do, actually.
Oh, look at them. Let me go over to FanDuel. If there's for the people watching, if you ever find, if there's like a book you tend to gravitate towards, let us know. We're not, being paid by any sports book. So
yep.
If you find numbers you like, or if you have a book you really like, let us know. We'll try and highlight some of their best odds from our perspective. Am I in the right place? Yeah, here we go. So Chase Byron, Harvick, Kyle Busch, +116 on Truex. Take that.
That's +116 there?
116, baby.
That's ridiculous.
Redonkulous. Thank you, FanDuel.
Thank
That
you,
is why you price
FanDuel.
shop, people. Because even when you think you find a good number, you can find a better number, like -112 with Brad instead of
Yep.
-115.
And when is the last time we said that? Thank you, FanDuel.
I know. We usually don't go over there because their numbers are usually like 1 point less than whatever whatchamacallit's posting.
What? All right, so I'm adding another outright.
Okay. Tell me about it.
I'm checking the odds here. I've already bet him.
Reddick is 19-1. I'll fix that for you on your book. Go ahead.
Reddick is 19-1?
Yeah, I fixed that.
Oh, Lord, these lines are moving. All right, so Barstool and Bet Rivers apparently have gotten divorced. Bet Rivers right now has Ryan Blaney 16-1. That is going on the card, folks.
Oh, baby.
I claimed Ryan Blaney last week at Atlanta. I don't expect him to slow down any. He looked great at Gateway. He's found that speed in that number 12 car, and 16-1. Yes, please.
Chase Briscoe is 43-1 at FanDuel. He was 80. He's still probably 80 somewhere in market. Shop it, people, especially for some of these longer ones.
Isn't that wild how vastly different some of these lines could be?
It's all about how the money they get that comes in. How is Kyle Larson still the favorite for? I guess they just have a lot of money from the beginning of the season, but it's crazy to me. Okay, Brian, you want to review our current cards, give the people a best bet for today, and then get ready for practice and qualifying, and we'll be back for that. Make sure you are subscribed. If you're not subscribed, we would really, really, really appreciate it. We'd love to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year. Approaching 600. Maybe we could do a cool giveaway at like 750 and 1,000. So if that helps you guys get on board, let's do it. Smash the thumbs up and let us know your favorite outright at time of recording. Let us know who you're targeting, what the best number is, all that good stuff. So I have a gross card that I am absolutely loving. Brad Keselowski, 23-1. Kevin Harvick, 10-1. My only two outrights. Chase, MFN, Briscoe, top 10 to plus 225. And then top 4 to 18-1. I have Truex over Christopher Bell and Brad over Bubba as my two head-to-heads. Brian, break down your card and give the people your best bet as we sit here Wednesday early evening on the West Coast.
Yeah, so I'm sitting on two outrights right now, Red Dog and Ryan Blaney, both of which will probably wreck out in the first stage. Only top 10,
But
Ryan
you know
Blaney.
what, Brian? Those numbers when we record on Saturday will be like 9-1 and like 11-1.
I
If
know.
only we could get money back for like moving markets.
And so only top 10 is Blaney, minus 120. And then two matchups right now. Martin Truex Jr. over Christopher Bell, plus 116. Thank you, Kyle, for finding this at FanDuel. And then William Byron over, as Kyle likes to refer to him, average ass Chase Elliott at minus 112.
What is your best bet as we sit here?
All right, so since I grabbed it first, Martin Truex Jr. over Christopher Bell. I just don't understand how this number could be this extended out. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm gonna smash this, so I'm gonna make this a 3-unit play prior to practice and qualifying. Something I haven't done in quite a while, by the way.
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. I put Brad over Bubba as my best bet. I'm putting 4 units on it.
Oh my Lord.
I'm a big Brad K guy this week. I'm trying to get exposure to him in a variety of ways. Obviously, I have the outright, but I like the head-to-head matchup at basically even money. So I am going to be on that in a big way.
You better hope that he doesn't torpedo your card.
You know what?
But
I will have the GameCube controller in hand. I will have 3 to 4 of my favorite millionaire friends hanging out with me, and we may or may not return, but we had a great time when we did it. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. Once again, mash the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let us know your favorite outright as we sit here. We will be back in your feed Sunday morning, maybe Saturday night. We'll see how qualifying and practice go. If it gets rained out or whatever, we'll figure that part out.
I get at Circa.
Yeah, Brian has a Scott Fishbowl draft. I am mid Scott Fishbowl draft. It is a great time. I'm loving my team. We'll see where it gets. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.